Thank you so much for joining me today. For those who don't know me, as Catherine said, my name is Megan and I'm Assistant Manager here at the International Trade Department of Business West. I've been with Business West now for about 2.5 years, handling various export documents, including that of the eATA Carnet, for which I'm sure many of you are very familiar with. So I'm delivering this presentation today, leading on the Digital eATA Carnet project in the absence of our Compliance Manager, Hilary Rossborough, and I'm joined with Catherine, who will be helping with questions. Just before we start, as Catherine's already said, just for any of you who weren't here for the very beginning, for GDPR reasons and commercial sensitivity, you have all been anonymised as attendees. So subsequently, the chat function has been disabled. We have enabled the Q&A function, so please do utilise this as we will have time at the end of the presentation, or alternatively, please just drop me an email after the presentation. My email address will be on the final slide. So the bulk of the presentation today will last for 40 to 45 minutes. Any specific questions related to your business, please feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to discuss digital carnets on a case-by-case basis, but this webinar is intended to give you all an overview of the project, where we stand now, and what is to come with the digitalisation of eATA carnets. As I said, we'll take some time at the end in the final 10 to 15 minutes, as it may be that we cover your question during the webinar. So let me welcome you again, and let's just run through the agenda of the webinar today. So I will aim to inform you of the changes which are coming to the eATA Carnet scheme, and I hope to guide you to make this change work for you and your business. So I'll begin by just explaining what is an eATA Carnet briefly, just in case any of you on the call are not already familiar, and how they are used in practice, just to set some context. We'll then run through the timeline for the project's introduction and set some further context. I'll explain the objectives of the project and follow this with a demo of the eATA Carnet app. I'll explain the parallel carnet procedure, which is the phase after the first countries start to accept digital carnets. I will outline some important changes in processes, so please do stick around for these, as they will no doubt affect your business if you are current users of eATA carnets. We'll then invite you to take part in the Digital Carnet trials with Business West, and then run through some FAQs. So just to start, we at Business West have been at the forefront of Digital Carnet, the Digital Carnet project, working closely with UK NATICO, who are the UK's governing body for all eATA carnets in the UK. However, I must just say that most of the digital carnet developments are at the discretion of UK NATICO and the global network of stakeholders in this project, who are still working hard to liaise with HMRC, foreign customs authorities, border force staff, overseas national guaranteeing organisations, etc., all over the world to try and bring digital carnets successfully into fruition. Many discussions are still to be had and details to be finalised, so the information presented to you today will be accurate as of today, the 4th of December, for the record. It is likely that some decisions are still to be consolidated in the spring, so look out for further newsletters, press releases, blogs, and potentially another webinar in the new year. We'll do our best to answer all questions, but please do understand if some answers are still to be confirmed at a later date. So with all of that boring stuff out the way, let's just rewind a minute and let's go over what is an eATA Carnet for those of you who are unaware. So an eATA Carnet is often referred to as a passport for goods. So it works in the same way as a passport, but for a set of goods. So a carnet is currently a physical paper document which relates to a specific list of goods being checked and stamped as they pass through each customs border. The carnet can be used for multiple trips throughout the carnet's validity, taking those goods into and out of as many countries as necessary. The eATA Carnet scheme was ultimately created as a trade tool to facilitate simplified procedures for temporary exports and imports, allowing duty and tax-free movement of goods required for commercial use for up to 1 year. As some of you may already know, making complicated customs declarations and paying hefty import duties every time you take your equipment in and out of countries on a temporary basis is not ideal, so the eATA Carnet scheme is there to ease this area of international trade. A carnet acts as a form of customs declaration to simplify the movement. Currently, there are over 80 countries and territories part of the scheme. An eATA Carnet can be applied for and used for taking goods abroad for a commercial purpose under one of these 3 categories: professional equipment, international trade fairs and exhibitions, and commercial samples. Significantly, since Brexit, carnets are now applicable for use with temporary exports to the EU, so the number of ATA carnets issued in the UK has skyrocketed since January 2021. So that was a brief snapshot of carnets. So let's just introduce why I'm here to talk about digital carnets. So as I said, currently a carnet is a physical document obtained by an issuing Chamber of Commerce. There's currently no digital equivalent. You must take that physical document with the goods to facilitate the export and import. If this gets lost or damaged, this opens up risks of unanswerable claims from overseas customs should they require evidence of the goods' re-exportation from their country and demand retrospective payment of duties, taxes, and even penalties. The digital carnet is here to streamline this, among other benefits, which I will discuss shortly. So just for some more context, here are what the paper and card counterparts of a paper carnet look like. So the top row are called counterfoils, which are completed and stamped by customs authorities against the adjacent voucher, which is the bottom tier. Customs would then retain that paper voucher as evidence of the goods coming and going from their country, whilst the counterfoil remains with the holder as evidence of the goods movement. So you can see here how admin errors can occur all the time, such as misplacement of the vouchers, handwriting errors even, damage to the carnet document, all of which could have huge financial consequences for the carnet holder. So you can see why this system really needs to enter the 21st century and become digitalized. So let's take a look at the timeline of the Digital Carnet project, which in fact started in the 20th century with the paper carnet, which began in 1963 and is still in place today, which is really surprising in today's digital age. In 2017, the International Chamber of Commerce then approved the Digital Carnet project, and since then it has been in development with the pilot phase introduced in 2019. It was then up to the International Chamber of Commerce and UK NATCO to develop the infrastructure to make digital carnets a reality. In case you don't know, UK NATCO is the UK's national guaranteeing organisation for ATA carnets. Each country has its own NGO, of whom govern and secure carnets in their respective countries. We are proud that UK NATCO has been instrumental in the global development of digital carnets, putting the UK at a significant advantage to get ahead of the digital developments before the go-live date of digital carnets begins around the world. As you can see, we are currently in that preparation phase. Customs officials, issuing bodies, issuing systems, and carnet holders are being trained and informed on digital eATA carnets. As you can imagine, this is a tremendous task, so in the meantime, digital eATA carnets can be trialled. So some selected ports around the world have been trained up and are accepting digital carnets in a trial format, which are stamped second to the paper carnet. We'll get onto that a bit more later. Now, this next phase is crucial. So the preparation so far has all been in place, ready for that crucial date, which is right around the corner now. So the EU, UK, Switzerland and Norway are going live with digital carnets on the 1st of April 2026. So this means that carnets issued destined for these 4 countries will be issued as a digital carnet after April 1st. So if there is one thing to take away from this presentation today, it is that users of ATA carnets are to understand and practice using digital carnets before this date. Shortly to follow, these 4 countries will most likely include the USA, Canada, China and Australia, who may be going live by the end of next year. The rest of the countries in the carnet scheme will gradually digitalise up until 2028 in a phased rollout, when all countries should be digital by 2028 and paper carnets will be no more. Now, as I said, the Digital eATA Carnet project has been in the works and led by UK NATCO, which is the UK's guaranteeing organisation. So let's just run through the project objectives. So the project objectives are ultimately to digitalise the entire ATA Carnet, moving away from the physical carnet document, which will streamline the entire process worldwide and reduce the errors made currently in the old-fashioned pen and paper wet stamp method of processing carnets. So among others, the benefits are the reduced environmental impact of all the paper they are printed on. A digital carnet cannot get lost as it's all cloud-based. The journey of the goods can be tracked remotely by the issuing chamber. Customs authorities also have a view of other customs transactions, which should, in the future, reduce the amount of claims. And finally, reduced admin errors such as handwriting, missing stamps, lost paperwork, etc., which can be one of the leading reasons for claims. So let's just get into the bit you're probably most interested in. So what is a digital eATA Carnet? So essentially, like many things these days, it will be an app. So the Carnet itself will be downloadable by a unique PIN and ID onto the app where all the data will appear. So how will you obtain one? So you will apply for the Carnet online as usual through the Chamber's issuing system. So in business worst case, this is eCert. Once the application has been checked and approved by our team on eCert, the data then gets pulled via an API onto the central Digital Carnet software, which is called Mercury Core. So rather than printing anything or waiting for anything to arrive in the post, you will download the Carnet onto your smartphone or tablet's Carnet app via a unique PIN and ID provided by the issuing system, which relates to your specific Carnet. This is pulled from Mercury Core, where all of the digital Carnet data is stored on a cloud. So the crucial point here is that a digital Carnet cannot get lost. It is all based on the cloud, so the Carnet can be downloaded onto multiple devices should your smartphone or tablet run out of battery, get lost or damaged during the goods movement. So this is a huge advantage over the current paper system. The holder or forwarder prepares what would be known as the travel, declaring the items to be taken to each destination, which then creates a QR code to be presented to customs. So this is the equivalent of completing the voucher and receiving a stamp if you are well versed on paper carnets. Customs then verify the data, inspect the goods, and then process the transaction simply by scanning the QR code, which is then recorded on the app and wider software. The transaction is then visible on the app and on Mercury Core, which can also be viewed by the issuing chamber and customs authorities. Once the Carnet is finished with and the goods have returned to the UK, the chamber will check the transactions and conduct the discharge process on the Carnet by checking for risks of potential claims. Now I have pre-recorded a demo here for a visual of how to use the app in case you have not seen it before. So just to reiterate, the application process for the Carnet remains the same. You will apply for the Carnet as usual on the issuing system, so in our case eCert, and then once the chamber have approved the Carnet, you would access the app to download the Carnet and begin to prepare your travels. You won't need to wait for anything physical to arrive in the post. We do have some other how-to video guides on our website. This is one that's a bit more short to get all the points in as quickly as I could. Also, apologies in advance for any times where I stumble over my words in this pre-recorded clip. So I'm just going to make sure that you can sound, and then I'm going to play that. So once I have had the Carnet approved on the issuing system, so in business worst case eCert, I'm then going to need the Carnet ID and PIN, which I can obtain from the chamber, to then download the Carnet onto the app. So the first thing I'll show you here is what the icon for the eATA Carnet app looks like. I have downloaded this from the Google Play Store, however it should be available on most app stores. I can start by pressing login here because I have already registered for an account. However, if you're first using the app, you will need to register. I would recommend that if you're working in a team that you create one central login so you can all see the Carnets in the same place. However, Carnets can be downloaded onto multiple devices, onto multiple apps. This is the home screen, so we've got Carnets, notifications, help and settings. I'm going to click Carnets, and this is where we have the list of all the Carnets that I have previously downloaded onto the app. So I'm going to download a new one onto the app today for the demo. So I have pre-prepared a Carnet on eCert and had it approved. So in order to download it onto the app, I'm going to click the plus icon at the top. This is where we can type in the Carnet number or the ID. We can also type in the Carnet PIN code, which is unique to the Carnet. There is also the option there to click that QR code, which will bring up the camera, so you can then scan the QR code of the Carnet that would be provided by your issuing chamber. So I'm going to start by typing in the Carnet ID, which I have in a screen in front of me at the moment. And there we have it. So in this case, we wanted this one here, GBBRI 260. So I'm going to click on that, and this is the face of the Carnet. So it resembles very much the green front cover of your paper Carnets. So it's got that Carnet ID at the top with the Carnet number, the issue date and the validity, which is of course 12 months. It shows its status, which is issued. We then have the holder name and address. This is just a completely fictional example. It has the representatives authorised to travel with the Carnet, the intended use of goods, the total value of goods, the item numbers, and the total weight. It also shows the set of vouchers. This will keep a live tally, so once they've been used, they will whittle down and show the total and available. In this case, there was just one of each issued, so it shows just that one total for each. Here it says the Carnet may be used in the following countries or customs territories, so this will reflect whichever countries have been selected upon the application on eCert. In this case, it was just Australia. At the bottom here, it then also shows the issuing chamber. At the bottom here, there are several different tabs. So we've got items, so as it suggests, this is almost like the back cover of the front. The green cover, sorry, and this will show all of the items and their descriptions. We then have a documents tabs, so this will be for things like letters of authorization or any other relevant documents that you would usually physically attach to a Carnet. We've then got the travels, which we will go through shortly, but essentially this is where you would create the QR codes for the customs officials to scan, so essentially the equivalent of completing a Carnet voucher in a paper version. History here, this is where you would see all of those transactions which are live as customs go and scan the QR codes. Everything would appear here in this history tab. So let's go and create a travel. So to do that, we can either go to the details tab, scroll down and press prepare travel, or we can go to the travels tab and again press prepare travel or this plus icon in the top right there. If the Carnet had been returned or discharged, cancelled, etc., that icon would not appear, so it wouldn't be possible to create further travels. So I'm going to hit prepare travel. So this is where we are going to fill in what in the paper version would be a voucher. So here, departure destination, this is where we can free type. So let's pretend we are going from the UK to Australia, Sydney. Here, departure destination, our departure is of course from the United Kingdom to Australia. These are the only destinations that will appear because that is where the Carnet was bonded for upon application on eCert. To location city event, again this is a free type box if you had a particular exhibition name, something like that that you might want to pop in there. Means of transport, this is a mandatory field. Details, remarks, flight numbers, etc. optional free text. There's the option here to pop in those transits, so that is the equivalent of the blue counterfoils in paper Carnets. And here is where we would declare the items we want to take. So we can either use this plus icon here to add as many items as necessary. We can also free type, or we can hit the select all button if we are going to take all of the items. Again, a free text box there for any optional packaging details, and then we're going to hit save. Oops. There we go, I've solved my Wi-Fi issues. So now we're going to hit save. As you can see there, that has created that travel. It can be edited up until it is scanned by customs authorities. So that one there is specifically for the exit from the UK and entry into Australia. If we click on it, it brings up those QR codes. So we've got the green validation, so essentially that is scanned by the UK customs authorities to activate the carnet. The export from the UK and the import into the Australia. As you can see, the colours align with currently what the colours of the physical carnet are to prevent any confusion. You have to click on this I confirm to the disclaimer before it will reveal that QR code. If you needed to share it with the person who was travelling the goods, then up here in the top you can click that share button. It does provide this disclaimer that you can read in your own time. Hit confirm, and then it gives multiple options as to how you want to share that voucher. The options it's presented me here is Outlook and Teams. However, if you had WhatsApp, Facebook, anything like that, you can share them in that method. Now this will be only for the export and import, so we would need to create a new travel for the return journey. So we click add. We'd want to go Australia to the UK, complete everything like we already did. It does also give you the added options here for the items not being re-exported or items processed or repaired abroad if you needed to make those sorts of declarations in the cases of split consignments, etc. Hit save, and there we have the re-export and re-import counterfoils as well. Once all of those have been scanned by customs authorities, your goods have gone and come back to the UK, you would then return the carnet to the chamber, and we would hit the return button on our end, and the carnet can no longer be used. Okay. So let me just elaborate on one of the points that I made during that demo in regard to the declarations and sharing them. So I appreciate that often you, as the applicant of the carnet, may not be the individual responsible for taking the goods over the borders. So in other words, making those declarations might not be your responsibility. You might be an agent or a freight forwarder, or are simply delegating the travel aspect to a friend or a colleague. So there is plenty of freedom depending on what your responsibility is for the carnet. But then you would send in the same way that you may apply for a carnet, but then send the original to the holder for use, you can do the same with a digital carnet. So once you have received that carnet ID and PIN from the chamber, you are then free to send those details to any recipient necessary, so they have the ability to create and share travels and make the declarations to customs. Similarly, you may be the holder of the carnet, but may have a freight forwarder who would be handling the shipment. Again, you can then share that carnet ID and PIN with them so they can download the carnet onto the app and make the declarations on your behalf. However, you might be in the complete opposite scenario. It might be that you, as the applicant or recipient of the ID and PIN, wish to maintain full control over the making of declarations. It may be that you don't wish to trust a driver with the full capability to make the declarations on your behalf, and this is absolutely fine. In that case, you would just create those declarations remotely on the app and simply share the copy of the QR code with a recipient for them to present to customs via WhatsApp, Facebook, etc. In this scenario, they wouldn't be able to make any edits. You would retain the full control. So again, there is plenty of freedom here for you and your teams to discuss what works best per carnet. I will also raise here that what we call the To Whom It May Concern letter that you receive with your paper carnets will remain an essential document should the representative presenting the QR codes to customs not be listed in the authorised representatives section of the Digital Carnet. So the person presenting that QR code declaration to customs must have the authority to do so as per the current procedure. Now, I must also draw your attention to this text in yellow, that the carnet holder will always remain responsible for payment of duty, regardless of who is shipping the goods, making the travels, or declaring the goods and the digital carnet to customs. So if you are the carnet holder, just think carefully about how you wish to do things and who you wish to share the details with. So why is this also important to know now? So as I mentioned earlier, on the 1st of April 2026, these four countries or customs unions are going live for digital eATA carnets. So the UK, Switzerland, EU and Norway. It's funny that they chose April Fool's Day, as I'm sure it will very much feel like that on the day. So this means that any carnets destined for these countries after this date will be issued as a digital carnet. You won't be provided with a paper one. You must learn in advance how to use the app and manage a digital carnet so you are prepared for future trips. As I mentioned earlier, other countries will gradually digitalise, some sooner rather than later, so this is why we need to get testing, as this will all come around much quicker than you can imagine. Now, you may be wondering, what happens if I am travelling to a country which has gone live with digital and a country which is still on the paper system with the same goods? Don't worry, there is a plan. So this will be referred to as the parallel procedure, which will likely last for the next couple of years until all the countries within the eATA Carnet scheme have digitalised their systems. So simply put, if you are travelling to a paper-only destination, you will be issued with a normal paper carnet, and this will be accepted by that country as long as it was issued prior to that country's go-live date for digital. So, for example, let's say you receive a paper carnet for a trip to the EU on the 31st of March. The EU then go live for digital carnets the next day on the 1st of April, so that paper carnet should be accepted within the EU for its entire validity since it was issued prior to the EU going live. So any other destinations which have not yet digitalised will continue to accept and process paper carnets as usual. Of course, if you are travelling to a digital-only destination, such as Switzerland, post April 1st, you will be issued with a digital carnet only. So in other words, you'll be sent that carnet ID and PIN, and it'll be your responsibility to access the app and set up your travels. And finally, if your itinerary contains a digital-only destination and a paper-only destination in the same trip, you will be provided with a digital carnet and a paper carnet. So they will be clones of one another with the same carnet number. So the paper carnet will show all the destinations on the front cover, including those digital destinations, which will likely be separated into different columns on the front cover, but that is still to be confirmed. The digital carnet will show only the digital destinations within the app. This is to prevent the user creating QR codes for a destination which does not yet accept digital carnets. So for these parallel carnets, it is also essential that you get both carnets stamped and scanned by UK Customs upon activation and export and re-import. So you would need to get the digital carnet scanned at the digital destinations and the paper carnet stamped at the paper destinations. You must get both carnets scanned and stamped upon the re-import to the UK, so both carnets show that full round trip. I know this all sounds very complicated, but don't worry, from the outset, the Chamber's issuing system should know which countries accept which type of carnet, so you won't need to worry upon application. Make your application as usual, and then you will be provided with whichever carnet or carnets is needed. So let's just do an example. So let's say on April 1st, 2026, you need to take your goods to the EU and the USA over the span of 2 weeks. So you would apply on your Chamber's issuing system as normal. You would then receive a paper eATA carnet showing the USA and the EU on the front cover, with the USA listed in a paper column and the EU countries in the digital column. You would also have to download the same carnet via the PIN and ID onto the app, which will show only the EU as the destination. So once you get to UK Customs, you should get both the paper carnet stamped and the digital carnet scanned to open both carnets in parallel. That's why it's called the parallel procedure. You'd then enter the EU and get only the digital carnet scanned, and upon re-export, again, you'd leave the EU getting only the digital carnet scanned. You'd then enter the USA and get only the paper carnet stamped by US Customs, and again on re-export. It is super important that upon re-import to the UK, you get both the paper and the digital carnets stamped by UK Border Force to show a complete trip on both carnets, as this will help answer any claims to prove that the goods did in fact return to the UK. So this process will be in place for the next couple of years as the countries begin to gradually digitalise. Of course, come 2028, hopefully all countries should be digital and paper carnet should be no more, so all of the transactions will occur on the app. So I'd just like to make you all aware of some other important changes now that will come with the digitalisation of carnets. And that is that once a digital carnet has been issued, there can be no changes made to the carnet as the data will become locked into the Mercury core system. So this will include the holder name and address, changes to the list of authorised representatives, the intended use of goods, and crucially, the general list, such as item descriptions, serial numbers, weights, and values. Just a side note on the authorised representatives, as I said, the To Whom It May Concern letter will still be issued with the carnet in case any individuals need to be authorised at a later date. So if any of those above factors need changing after the carnet has been issued, we cannot overwrite the data like we might have been able to with paper carnets. A change would require a brand new carnet application with a brand new carnet number. Now, this does also affect countries and destinations, so you will not be able to add a country to a carnet after it has been approved, even after an itinerary change, whilst the goods are abroad. So in other words, a carnet cannot be rebonded for a new destination post-issue. This is due to guarantee parameters within Mercury Core and is out of our hands. So we'd recommend that holders amend their workflows to become as fully prepared as possible for any destinations which may be visited from the outset, and ensure that these are applied for in the first instance. It may be that you add countries onto the original application on a sort of just in case basis, a bit more so than you would do so now. Now, of course, we do fully appreciate that this is not quite that simple and it does pose a huge change to the current procedure. So in the case that your goods are overseas on a digital carnet and now last minute you need to take them to a new destination which is not currently on the carnet, you would then need to apply for a brand new carnet in order to take those goods onto the new country. We will be able to issue a new carnet for the same list of goods. So this would incur a new issue fee and security covering all those previous countries and the new ones too. The exact procedures in regards to the transfer of liability between the original and the new carnets are still yet to be confirmed. However, it is quite likely that it will compare closely to the replacement carnets and how they are processed. So let's do another example. If your goods are overseas in Switzerland on a digital carnet, but you have now just booked a new gig in Norway. So then you need to apply for a new carnet for these goods with both Switzerland and Norway on the list of destinations. You'd get that new carnet validated by the NCU, which is the National Carnet Unit, since of course you have no goods to stamp out upon export. You'd then scan for digital, scan them into Norway on the new carnet. This new carnet will then have taken over the liability for the goods and should be used for the rest of the trip. It would be essential to receive the UK scan on both carnets upon return of the goods to the UK, again to close them both off and prove that the goods did return in case of any claims. Now, we as a chamber are going to be learning more about this system in the coming weeks as processes become finalised. However, we do envisage that the issue date of the new carnet would be the same as the issue date of the original, just to ensure that the goods are staying overseas for no more than the 12 months. We do appreciate that this is a significant adjustment to the current system and want to get your heads around, so please do get in touch if you have any concerns or queries on this point. So now I've given you all this information, you may be wondering, okay, what can I do now? So the answer is to trial a digital carnet. April 2026 will come around in no time, so it is essential that users of eATA Carnets become familiar with the new processes, whether that be as an applicant, agent, forwarder, or holder. Until the go live date in April 2026, digital carnets are purely a trial. They are not legally binding. The paper carnet is still your official declaration. Therefore, if trialing a digital carnet, you must first present your paper carnet to customs and then the digital carnet second. Customs authorities, before the go live dates, would not accept a digital carnet transaction as evidence in the case of a claim, so the paper carnet is the most important until go live. So in order to take part in the trial and provide the crucial inputs to the rollout of the project, simply apply for your carnet as usual on eCert, request the PIN and ID from our wonderful carnet team, and download the app. Once you have followed our user guides, should you need them, you should have the digital carnet prepared on your smartphone, ready to create the travels in tandem with the usual paper vouchers. First and most importantly, activate and get your paper carnet stamped. Then ask the customs officer to scan your digital carnet as a test. With practice, you will be completely ahead of the curve and prepared for go live, which may stand you at a significant advantage above competitors. So here is a non-exhaustive list of the ports currently involved in the preparation phase, accepting digital carnets as part of a trial. We have been told that all of the UK ports in the country will be accepting digital carnet trials from January, but we will update the list of ports on our websites as soon as this has been finalised and they are ready. So if you are travelling to or from any of these ports with your usual paper eATA carnet, please do request access to the digital eATA carnet too from your issuing chamber, as then you can do some testing. Crucially, the Dunkirk route seems to have joined the trial, which will open up opportunities for full tests for road freight going to the EU. But yes, to see all of the involved ports, as this is a non-exhaustive list, please do see our website, and it should be being updated in the next few weeks as well. So I hope you're all still with me. Thank you for bearing with me. We are nearly there. I'm just going to run through some FAQs on the project just to fill in any knowledge gaps before we open up and ask for questions from you guys. So firstly, what if I'm traveling to an overseas territory? So overseas territories will need to be added to the itinerary separately. For example, if you're traveling to the Canary Islands, this must be entered into the digital travel. They will not accept Spain. So this is different to current paper practice. I believe that UK Attico are still coding in a lot of the territories into Mercury Core as we speak, so they should all be ready come go live. Will countries provide a grace period for acceptance of paper carnets after they go live? So as I said earlier, any carnet issued as paper prior to the country's go live date will be accepted as paper for its validity. During the parallel procedure, both paper and digital carnets will be listed on the front cover. And then if a country goes live after that carnet has been issued, that country should accept the paper carnet since it was issued prior to going live for digital. The country wouldn't need to move columns on the front cover, for example. What will happen if I need a replacement carnet, so an extension? So you would apply for the carnet as usual, subject to any country-specific requirements. Now, whether or not the replacement carnet must be in the same format, so paper or digital, as the original is still to be confirmed. So if you require a replacement carnet for a carnet previously issued as paper, so i.e. any carnet issued within a year prior to the country's go-live date, it hasn't been concluded whether the replacement carnet will be issued as paper or digital. Different countries so far have different opinions on this, so it's still an area to be finalised. However, if a replacement carnet is needed for a carnet which was originally issued as digital, then the replacement will be issued digitally. This obviously won't be an issue until approximately April 2027. But as you may know, currently paper carnets are sent to the National Carnet Unit for validation. However, the digital equivalent will be to make the declaration within the app and hit a button that says Add Pre-Declaration, which would then assign the NCU as the port for validation. This would then ping the green validation QR code to the NCU for remote activation, so nothing would need to be physically sent to them. Now, as far as the transfer of liability from the original to the replacement carnet is concerned, the liability should be transferred as per the current procedure overseas, as far as we understand. How do I present a digital carnet to customs offices which are not available to the public? So the travel needs to be prepared in advance and assigned to a port via the Add Pre-Declaration button, which is for customs to then process the transaction remotely. We know that sometimes customs officials are not available to the public. They might be tucked away in a back office where you may currently have to leave your paper carnet with them to collect at a later time when it is stamped. Don't worry, you won't need to leave your phone with them. So a setup called pre-declaration has been put in place and should be set up and running by the end of the year. We at the Chamber are actually receiving training on this next week, but essentially the holder can prepare the travels in advance, hit a button saying Add Pre-Declaration, assign a port, and then that will send that declaration through to that customs to remotely process the transaction on their systems. How much will digital carnets cost? So during the testing phase until April, there's no changes to price. It will not cost any extra to trial a digital carnet, so you have nothing to lose. It is likely that in April 2026, you should expect the usual annual price raises in regard to issue fees, but that will be circulated nearer the time. And then we will be reviewing pricing structures during the parallel procedure and post go live, so we will keep you posted on that. And finally, how will I return a digital carnet? So of course, at present, since the carnet is a physical document, the physical return of the document renders it unusable by the holder for the Chamber to then physically check the stamps over for potential claims and conduct the discharge process. With the digital carnet system, it will remain the holder's responsibility to tell the Chamber that the digital carnet is no longer required to essentially return the carnet. The Chamber will be able to enact a return on Mercury core, which will then make the carnet unusable so they can no longer use it or create travels. The status of the carnet on the app will state returned, and this cannot be redacted, so please make sure you are certainly finished with the carnet before telling us it needs to be returned. Further info on how to return the carnet will be circulated nearer the go live date, but for now we would expect an email. And then the Chamber would, as usual, check the digital carnet for potential claims and advise any action points based on the history of transactions. As far as post-issue scenarios go, such as claims management and general discharging, we will be going ahead with our usual practices, but we will be receiving further training and information from UK Natco on any other changes to discharging and claims next year. So I think that rounds off the Digital Carnet experience. So with that, I'll leave that there. I appreciate that was a lot of information, so thank you so much for your attention and patience. We'll welcome a few questions now, so please use that Q&A function or otherwise get in touch offline. Just before we go into questions, I will also mention that UK Natco are aiming to host a webinar of their own for Carnet users such as yourselves to attend, so we will circulate details of this as soon as the date is confirmed.
Thank you, Megan. I think we can all agree, a very thorough walkthrough and lots of information to take in there on digital carnets. So now we'll have a little look at, through the Q&A and answer any questions that are in there. I can see there's currently only one that's come through.
I can see two, so that's good.
Oh, you can see two. I can only see one. That's interesting. Okay, so the one that I can see says, is there a desktop version or will it be app only? If app only, will it be compatible with iPad or just smartphones?
So it will definitely be compatible with iPads, so tablet, smartphones, anything where there is an app store and you can download an app, you should be able to get to the app to manage the carnets. In terms of desktop version, there is mainly for high volume users who might have many carnets that they issue per day to manage. that is still in progress with UK Natco. It has some bugs that need fixing, so we can't circulate that just yet. And we still haven't received the full training on how it will work as a chamber, but we will circulate information on that nearer the time, and we can also discuss that offline if you'd like to.
Thank you. Hopefully that answers your question. Next question, how do we extend validity?
So if we're talking about the validity of the entire carnet, so the 12 months, it would be in the same way as current procedure in terms of the replacement carnets. So if the country the goods are located in accept the replacement carnets, not all of them do, so you would need to check that, then you would apply for a replacement carnet in the same way as you would now. And the liability transfer would be handled in the same way as the paper carnet is now. But in terms of bond length, if you're referring to that, again, that would be the same as it is now. It is only the destinations that can't be added to the carnet in terms of a security bond. So the 2, 6, and 12 months, we can add another bond on within the 12 months if necessary. So I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Megan. Next question. Can I add QR for travel vouchers for itinerary in advance, or are they tied to a specific date?
Let me just get my head around that. Can I add QR for travel vouchers for itinerary in advance? Oh, yes. Yes, so they can be prepared in advance. I don't believe that they show a date on there at all. No, they can definitely be prepared in advance. And again, because of this pre-declaration system that they've conjured up, again, that supports that. So you could prepare it one day, send it through for customs to process the next day, for example. So no, they're not tied to a specific date as far as I'm aware.
And I think you probably did say in the webinar, Megan, didn't you, that anything can be amended up until the point that customs actually scan that QR code anyway. So you can make amendments up until that point.
Yeah.
So next question. Did you say that you can't change the authorised representative once issued, i.e. add a driver?
So this essentially don't worry too much about this. I might have made it sound more dramatic than it is. No, that to whom it may concern letter that we issue with the paper carnet is still completely fine. If you needed to add a driver on, add a company handling the goods, that's fine. You would need to use that letter to authorize them, as you do now. What I was referring to is currently, if there is an amendment to that box B on the paper carnet, we can reissue the carnet with the same carnet number. So you could reapply, amend box B. We can approve it with the same carnet number. We won't be able to do that going forward. Any amendments to fields such as that would need to require a brand new carnet. But if you need to change the authorised representative once issued, you would use that to whom it may concern letter.
Thanks, Megan. Next question. For a replacement carnet, so for goods overseas needing a new country adding, how long does it take NCU to validate?
Well, this hasn't happened yet in the new system because we're not live yet. But I would have I would envisage that it would be quicker than it is now because there's no physical carnet arriving with them. I think now we advise, I think 7 to 14 working days, I believe, for the NCU to validate. But considering this is a remote process now, where you're pinging the QR code to them remotely, I would have thought it would be quicker than that. But I can't confirm that entirely because it hasn't quite happened yet. And we are going to be receiving training next week about this pre-declaration service for which the NCU are involved in. So we might have the answer to that next week.
Thank you. So next question is, so in theory, will the processing of a carnet at Stevington be quicker than the current paper method?
In theory, yes. I think it will depend customs officer to customs officer, port to port. But essentially, yes, they will be simply scanning a QR code as opposed to filling in various paper manually. They will still need to be doing inspection of the goods and things like that. But in theory, I would imagine it to be quicker. But as I said, it will depend on different ports. Catherine, is Sevington one of the ones where the customs officers are not available for public? Would that be one that would benefit from the pre-declaration? service? I'm not
Um,
sure.
no, I think Sevington. I think you can go
Okay.
in Sevington, can't you? Because yeah, individuals go there, don't they? So yes,
Right.
I think they
Okay.
should be. I mean, I think
Hmm.
it's difficult for us to answer that really because obviously we're not customs. So
Mm.
um, hopefully, like Megan says, it will be in theory a quicker process.
And I'm sure there will be teething issues as well. So yeah, the first few months the customs officers might be a bit baffled, but they'll get the hang of it hopefully.
Okay, I've got a few more questions and I'm conscious of time. So if we just move on to the next one. So just to confirm, when carnets are used in parallel, UK Customs will stamp both digital and paper carnets on exit from the UK and return to the UK.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly that. So the UK customs are trained on they'll be live for both digital and paper. So as the issuing country, that both carnets need to have that full round trip. So yes, the stamps need to be on both digital and paper during the parallel process from exit and return to the UK.
Okay. Next question. Will we need new paper front covers for the parallel carnets?
Um, Most likely yes. Again, we haven't quite had that finalized in regard to the column idea. This has been quite recent news for us, and I don't think it's been fully finalized between UK Natco and the issuing systems. But yes, likely we will be reviewing the front cover system, but we will have to update you on that when we have that finalized.
Lovely. What training has been rolled out for freight forwarders and customs?
In terms of customs, UK Natco themselves have been conducting very, very, very thorough training over the past few years in preparation, which is still going on now. It has obviously been a huge task because there's so many different ports and customs offices all over the country. In terms of forwarders, it will be things like this, the webinar. Um, it will be training sort of more on a case by case basis.
We do have videos on our website as well, um, which as we're getting new information, we're updating those and trying to keep everybody informed of all the new information as and when we receive it. So I'm sure we will possibly do more webinars as Megan says, there's also going to be a webinar for kind of users from UK Natco, which I would urge you all to go on in January. We don't know the date of that as yet as well. So there will be more training, I'm sure, lots more training as we come up to the go live date. So next question. If we have a carnet, oh, I'm going to have to open that. If we have a carnet that is currently signed into a foreign country and we need to add a country to the carnet, from what I understand, you need to bring the kit back to the UK to raise a new carnet with the new country added. Is there any way around bringing the kit back while raising the new carnet?
So yes, this is that change that because currently with paper carnets, you wouldn't need to bring the kit back. We could add a new country onto the carnet, but with digital carnets approaching, that won't be the case. So you could bring the goods back and then raise a new carnet, but yes, there is a way around it. It would just require a brand new carnet to then get those goods into the new destination. So that new carnet would need to contain the previous destinations and the new destination and any others that you intended to go to. And that new carnet would need to be used to take the goods into that new country.
Thank you. What happens if a user has no mobile signal at a customs border when getting the carnet scanned?
This is something that I'm not 100% on. As you might have noticed in my demo, I lost internet for a second and it did pause it. Um, I believe that you would need to connect to a Wi-Fi, but this might be a question for UK Natco during their webinar because they handle the more technical issues around the app itself. Um, I'm not 100% sure on the full usage offline in the app at the moment.
I mean, I think also I know the whole point of this is to go digital, but if you've got a QR code, you can print the QR code out as well. So it might be certainly in the first instance, it might be for the first few months at least, while we're getting used to this whole new digital procedure, maybe get your drivers to print those out or send them to your drivers as a paper copy as well. I'm sure Natiko have thought of that. So as Megan says, I'm sure that's something that we can bring up in the webinar with them in January. Right, I'm just going to do a couple more. So if adding additional countries to a carnet whilst goods are outside the UK, do the goods need to return while the new updated carnet is being issued? I think that you've just answered that on a different
Yeah, and
somebody else's.
unless the carnet's expired, then no, they can stay out there, and the transfer of liability would be quite similar to the replacement
Yeah,
scenario.
okay. And I think this might be the last question that I can see. So for pre-declaration by customs, once customs have accepted the declaration, will this ping back to the app for the user to see?
Yes, it should do. So in that history tab, it should have a live feed of the notifications. So as soon as they have um, approves the declaration, as long as you had your notifications turned on your phone for the app to feed into, then yes, it should ping through to say that it's been accepted.
Lovely. And I don't see any further questions. Just give everyone,
Perfect
we've
timing.
literally got 2 minutes, so it's perfect timing, everybody. Well done. Managed to wrap up within the hour. Just leave it there for a minute or so, just in case anyone does have any other questions. What I would say is if you do think of anything after the webinar, as we said before, we are going to send the slides and the presentation round to everybody. But if you do have anything pops into your head afterwards, because these things often do, just you can send an email to either Megan there or to the Carnets at Business West email, which is on your screen currently. And then we will obviously come back to you with responses as soon as we can. Did you have anything else you wanted to just finish with, Megan?
Nothing from me. No, hopefully that was comprehensive. I know it's a lot of detail and we only had an hour to talk about it, but yeah, get in touch with any further questions.
And we do urge you to, oh, there's one more. There's one more's come in. Just to say a huge thanks for an excellent presentation. Oh, thank you very much. That's much appreciated.
Thank
All
you.
Megan's hard work. um, so I think on that note, we'll draw a close to the webinar. Huge thanks to you, Megan, for really insightful, detailed presentation. And obviously, anyone has any questions, then please do come to us afterwards. Thank you
Thank you,
for
Beth.
listening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye bye.